Hi guys! So our topic for today will be all about sale and leaseback transaction. So this video is actually the part 4 for accounting for leases, no? So what is a sale and leaseback transaction? Well, sale and leaseback transaction according to IFRS 16 is actually an arrangement whereby one party sells an asset to another party and then immediately leases back from the new owner. Ibig sabihin dito, meron tayong one party which is yung tinatawag natin na seller. Okay? And then, ibibenta niya yung asset niya papunta doon sa tinatawag nating buyer, syempre. Okay? So, ito yung tinatawag natin na sale transaction. Ngayon, natawag siya na sale and leaseback transaction because apparently here, the seller wants to what? Wants to lease back the asset or the same asset from the buyer. So, ngayon, dalawang transaction ng ating kino-consider dito. First will be the sale transaction, the next will be the lease transaction. That's why here, the seller will become what? The seller will become the lessee. And then, the buyer is actually what? Is actually the lessor. That's why the seller here is tinatawag din natin na seller-lessee. Then, the buyer is called the buyer-lessor. Liwanag ba? So, here, what are the possible reasons, no, kung bakit ginagawa to? Well, I can give you some of the reasons kung bakit ginagawa to ng ibang mga companies, no? So, first reason is that the seller-lessee is experiencing cash flow or financial problem. Ibig sabihin, kung kailangan ng pera ni seller, pero kailangan din niya yung asset na yun, ang pwede niya ngayong gawin is ibenta yung asset na yun sa ibang company or yung tinatawag nga natin na buyer. And then, at the same time, para magamit pa rin niya yung asset na yun, i-release niya yun pabalik sa kanya. So, if that will be the case, see to it na siya pa rin ang gagamit dun sa asset na yun, pero nagkaroon siya ng cash. Easy cash, parang ganon. Okay? Next reason is that there are tax advantages kasi in such arrangement in the lessee's jurisdictions. Okay? Then last but not the least is that the seller-lessee would like to avoid the burden of paying the executory cost attendant to the asset because as I said, no, in my previous videos or in part 1 to 3 of leases, meron tayong mga tinatawag na executory cost wherein these are the cost of maintaining the asset. So, para maiwasan yan nung seller, ang pwede niyang gawin is ibenta yung asset so that si buyer nang magbe-bear or ang magbabayad ng mga executory cost na yan. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? So, sir, anong problema natin dito? Well, ang problema lang actually natin dito is dito sa seller-lessee. Because dito sa seller-lessee, meron po tayong mga bagong provision, right, as compared to the old standard in leases. Okay? Pero pagdating kay buyer-lessor, same, right, procedure lang. As regards to the part 2 of our video, part 2 ba yun? Part 1? Part 1 and part 2, actually, okay? Part 1 and part 2 of our series of discussion about leases. Ibig sabihin, pagdating kay buyer-lessor, tignan mo muna kung finance lease ba yan or operating lease yan. Okay? So, finance lease yan if okay ulit yung TOMS natin. Ano nga ulit yung TOMS natin? First, may transfer of ownership. Pangalawa, may option to purchase. Pangatlo, material yung lease term. That is at least 75% of the useful life of the asset. Then letter S, substantial yung present value of minimum lease payment. That is at least 90% dapat yung present value as compared to the fair value. So, kapag present kahit isa sa TOMS na yan, finance lease na tayo agad-agad pagdating kay lessor. Otherwise, mag-operating tayo. Once again, no? If hindi po present, no, yung TOMS, automatically mag-operating tayo kay lessor. So, ganun lang yun kadali pagdating kay lessor. So, dito kay lessee, as again, according to IFRS number 16, at commencement date, no? Once again, at the commencement date, kailangan kasi natin ditong mag-recognize ng dalawang bagay. So, sir, ano yung dalawang bagay na nire-recognize? Number 1 is yung tinatawag natin na right of used asset. Okay? And then, pangalawa is yung tinatawag naman natin na leased liability. So, meron tayong tinatawag na right of use asset and then meron tayong lease liability. Well, dito, pagdating sa lease liability, wala tayong problema. Sir, bakit po? Because lease liability will still be equal, no, to the present value of the lease payments. Again, present value of the lease payments lang din ulit to. Wherein, pagdating sa present value computation, implicit rate pa rin will prevail over the incremental borrowing rate. Meaning, if given ang implicit rate, automatically yun na yung gagamitin. Pero kapag walang implicit rate na given, we don't have any choice but to use the incremental borrowing rate. Okay? While minimum lease payment, na-discuss natin to no, sa part 3. Ano nga ulit laman yan? Lima. Ano yung limang laman yan? First will be the fixed lease payment. Pangalawa will be the variable lease payment. Pangatlo will be the option to purchase. Pang-apat will be the residual value guarantee. Then last but not the least will be the termination penalties. Okay? So, lahat ng yun na-discuss na natin actually sa part 3, except dun sa variable payment wherein, i-discuss pa natin yun sa part 5. Liwanag ba? So, same lang pagdating sa lease liability. Pero dito, pagdating sa right of use asset, ibang usapan na. Sir, bakit ibang usapan na yan? Ibang usapan na dito because iba na ang computation natin. Okay? So, how to compute now the cost of the right of use asset? Cost of right of use asset is actually equal no, to the carrying amount of the asset sold. Again, nagbenta tayo dito, no? So, carrying amount tayo times what? Carrying amount times the right retain. Again, imumultiply natin yan, no? Dun sa tinatawag natin na right retain divided by what? Divided by the fair value of the asset. Okay? So, sir, ibig bang sabihin yan, hindi na po ito yung initial measurement ng lease liab plus initial direct cost, plus lease bonus, minus lease incentive, and then, ano pa yung isa? Ano pa yung dulo? Plus dismantling cost. Hindi na po ba ganun? Hindi na ganun. This time, since hindi mo naman nilist, what I mean is hindi naman, right, galing kay lessor yung asset, galing sa'yo to eh. Tama ba? Ikaw yung dating holder ng asset. Ibig sabihin ngayon, kung ikaw naman yung dating holder or owner ng asset na to, and then binenta mo at nilis mo lang pabalik, no need to consider all those. Maliwanag ba? So, ang ibig sabihin ngayon, the cost of the right of use asset will now be different. This will now be equal to the carrying amount times the right retain over the fair value of the asset. Okay? So, ngayon, pag-usapan natin paano mako-compute no, yung right retain na yan. Okay ba tayo doon? So, next page tayo, no? So, kapag sinabi po natin na right retain, again, listen up. Pag sinabi po natin na right retain, this is actually equal no, to the present value of the lease payments. Again, this is actually equal to the present value of the lease payments. Pero may plus or minus ba dito? Okay? Minus the additional financing. Again, minus no, the additional financing just in case, right, that the selling price is actually higher than the fair value. So, if the selling price is higher, no, to the fair value, ina-assume natin dito na may additional financing pa. Ibig sabihin, if may additional financing, part of the present value of the minimum lease payment or part of the lease liability, again, this is what we call the lease liability, no? Part of the lease liability is actually the additional financing na pinautang sa atin. And since kasama na yun sa present value of lease payment, kailangan mo ngayon yung tanggalin. So, minus additional financing tayo. Okay? Then, apparently, plus prepayments tayo. Again, plus prepayments, just in case, no, na yung selling price naman this time will be what? Will be lower than the fair value. So, if mas mababa naman yung selling price, no, compared doon sa fair value, we assume na meron tayong prepayments. And the prepayments, once again, is included no, in the present value of lease payment. That is why, kailangan mo yung i-add back. So, plus prepayments po tayo dito. Maliwanag ba? So, that's the computation of the right retain. And once again, no, you need that computation in order for us to compute the cost of the right of use asset. Nagkakaintindihan pa ba? Ngayon, ganito. If, right, total gain naman, if total gain ang kinapakompute naman sa atin, right, kailangan mo munang tignan kung ano ba to. Okay? So, if this is, no, an operating lease accounting, again, if this is an operating lease accounting, kailan nga lang tayo pwedeng gumamit ng operating lease? If and only if, number 1, right, short-term lease. A lease that is 12 months or less. Or na number 2, that is a low-value asset lease or low-value lease. So if short-term lease and low-value lease, the lessee is permitted to use the operating lease accounting. And if that's the case, total gain is actually recognized in full. Again, recognized po yan in full. Nagkakaintindihan po ba tayo dun? Okay? So sir, paano ba i-compute yung total gain na yan? Well, total gain is actually equal, no, to the fair value. Again, this is equal to the fair value minus the carrying amount. Okay? Again, this is equal to the fair value minus the carrying amount. Ngayon, punta tayo sa finance lease. Alright? Because ito yung default eh. Because according to IFRS 16, all leases shall be accounted by the lessee under finance lease. Except nga if short-term lease or low-value lease. Okay? So, kapag finance lease tayo, the total gain is hinahati. Meron tayong tinatawag na gain to be recognized. Again, meron tayong tinatawag na gain to be recognized. And then, meron din po tayong tinatawag na gain not to be recognized. Again, meron tayong gain to be recognized and then meron din tayong gain not to be recognized. So, kapag tinanong ka, how much is the gain? Right? In the income statement, ang isasagot mo lang, syempre, is yung gain to be recognized. Unless, operating lease yan, wherein if this is an operating lease, recognized in full. Okay? So, paano i-compute yung gain to be recognized at paano i-compute yung gain not to be recognized? So, gain to be recognized is actually equal, no, to the total gain. Again, this is equal to the total gain times the right transferred. Again, this is equal to the right transferred. Okay? Divided by the fair value pa din. Again, divided by the fair value. So, sir, ang tinuro mo lang kanina, right retained. Saan mo na naman galing yan, right transferred na yan? Well, right transferred, no, is actually equal to the fair value. Again, this is equal to the fair value minus the right retained. So, ibig sabihin, kailangan mo munang malaman magkano yung right retained natin and then i-deduct mo yun sa fair value in order for us to compute the right transferred. Okay? Then, yung gain to be recognized lang natin is yung right na na-transfer na natin sa buyer. Okay? That's why kanina, yung right of use asset is yung na-retain kasi tayo ang gagamit. Pero, yung gain to be recognized is yung na-transfer mo ng right. That's why right transferred naman ang ating kinocompute dito. While the gain not to be recognized on the other hand is equal, no, to the total gain. Again, this is on the other hand equal to the total gain times the right retained. Again, right retained divided by the what? Divided by the fair value, or alternatively, this is also equal to the total gain minus the gain to be recognized. Again, alternatively, this is also equal, no, to the to the total gain minus to the gain to be recognized. So that's the computation of the gain to be recognized and gain not to be recognized. Okay? So, to apply all these concepts to the problems, let's now move on to illustrative problem number 1. So, here, at the beginning of the current year, Pepper Company sold a machinery with a remaining life of 10 years for 2 million, which is equal to the fair value of the machinery. Pepper Company immediately leased the machinery back for 1 year at the prevailing annual rental of 300,000. The machinery has a cost of 3 million and an accumulated depreciation of 1.2 million. Therefore, the carrying amount now is equal to how much? That's 3 million minus 1.2 million, or that's equal to 1.8 million pesos. Okay? Since here, the lease is only good for 1 year, we can now use the operating lease accounting. Okay? So here in number 1, if tatanungin tayo how much is the gain or loss on the sale that the seller lessee must recognize, our final answer now will be equal to the selling price of 2 million pesos minus the carrying amount of 1.8 million pesos, or we have a gain equal to 200,000. So requirement number 1, 200,000 will be our final answer. Okay? Then requirement 2, how much is the rent expense that the seller lessee must recognize? Obviously, this will be equal to the annual rental of 300,000. That's why number 2, 300,000 final answer. Requirement 3, same thing. How much is the rent income? That's equal to 300,000. Okay? So, that's illustrative problem number 1. Now, punta tayo sa illustrative problem number 2, wherein here, finance lease accounting na ang ating i-apply kagaya nung tinuro ko kanina. Okay? So, an asset with a carrying amount of 5 million was sold for at its fair value of 6 million pesos. The seller immediately leased back the building from the buyer with an annual rental of 750,000 for 10 years, with lease payment payable at the end of each year for the next 10 years. On this date, the market rate of interest is actually equal to 10%. So, here determine the following in the books of the seller lessee. So, compute muna natin dito yung present value factor of ordinary annuity of 1 since, right, the first payment here will be at the end of each, at the end of the year. Okay? So, ordinary annuity tayo, ha? So, 1.1 divided by equals, then click M plus sign 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you wanna know kung bakit namin yung ginawa, please punta ka muna dun sa present value computation natin here in this same channel. Okay? So, MR, the present value of ordinary annuity is actually equal to 6.1446. Okay? For 10 periods. Again, that is for 10 periods, ha? Liwanag ba? Now, multiply natin yan saan? Multiply natin yan dun sa annual rental na 750 para makompute natin yung initial measurement. Again, this will now be the initial measurement of the lease liability. Okay? So, this will be equal to 6.1446 times 750,000, or this is how much? This is actually equal to, magkano yan? 6.1446 times 750,000, or this is equal to 4,608,450. So, requirement number 1, 4,608,450 will be our final answer. Okay? So, dito, yan na rin po yung ating magiging what? Yan na rin yung tatawagin natin na right retain. Sir, bakit naman? Because apparently, nabenta po natin yung asset at its fair value. Ibig sabihin, if fair value is equal to the selling price, wala tayong problema. Ibig sabihin lang nun, right? What do you call this? There will be no additional financing nor prepayment na kailangan nating i-consider. So, if that's the case na yung fair value is equal to the selling price, lease liability will be equal to the right retain. Okay? Number 2, how much will be the cost of the right of used asset? Well, once again, no, cost of ROUA or the right of used asset will be equal to the carrying amount of 5 million pesos times the right retain of 4,608,450 divided by the fair value which is equal to 6 million pesos. Okay? So, magkano ngayon yung cost ng ROUA natin? 5 million times 4,608,450 divided by 6 million. Ulitin ko. 5 million times 4,608,450 divided by 6 million. This is actually equal to 3,840,375. Okay? So, requirement number 2. Once again, no? Requirement number 2, how much is the cost of right of used asset? Our final answer will be equal, no, to 3,840,375. So, 3,840,375 will be put here. Requirement number 3, magkano daw yung total gain? Once again, no, total gain will just be equal to the difference between the fair value of 6 million pesos minus the carrying amount of 5 million pesos, or this is actually equal to 1 million pesos. Okay? So, requirement number 3, 1 million pesos will be our final answer. Requirement 4, gain to be recognized. Magkano nga ba? Or paano nga ba kinocompute yung gain to be recognized natin? Once again, no, gain to be recognized will be equal to the total gain of 1 million pesos times the right transferred. Sir, paano i-compute ulit yung right transferred? Right transferred is equal to the fair value of 6 million minus the right retain, which is equal to 4,608,450. So, 6 million minus 4,608,450, our right retain, again, right retain will be equal to, right transferred is equal to 1,391,550 divided by, of course, the fair value of 6 million pesos, or this is equal to how much? 1 million times 1,391,550 divided by 6 million. Ulitin ko, 1 million divided by 6 million times 1391550, or this is equal to 231924 or 25 rather. Okay? So 231,925 will be our final answer, no? Here in requirement number 4. Then requirement number 5, magkano daw po yung gain to be recognized natin, no? So gain not to be recognized is actually equal to the total gain of 1 million pesos times the right retain naman this time, which is equal to 4608,450 divided by the fair value, no, of 6 million pesos. Or this is actually equal to 768,075. Or alternatively nga, pwede mo rin namang i-deduct na lang from the total gain na 1 million yung gain to be recognized na 231,925. Okay? So, ang ibig sabihin ngayon, out of the 1 million gain, ang i-recognize lang po natin sa ating books will be equal to 231,925. So, requirement number 5, gain not to be recognized now will be equal to 768,075. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? So, that is illustrative problem number 2. Next, punta tayo sa illustrative problem number 3. So, here, an asset with carrying amount of 5 million pesos was sold for 6.5 million. Okay? The fair value of the asset on that date is equal to 6 million pesos. So, ano meron dito? Ang meron dito is that the selling price, no, is actually higher than the fair value. So, meron tayong tinatawag na additional financing na kailangan nating tanggalin later sa computation ng right retain. Okay? The seller immediately leased back the building from the buyer with an annual rental of 750 for 10 years with lease payment payable at the end of each of the next 10 years. On this date, the market rate of interest is actually equal to 10%. Actually, kapareho lang nito yung illustrative problem number 2, kaso pinalitan ko yung fair value. This time, fair value. Pinalitan ko yung selling price. Because kanina, selling price and fair value is 6 million. This time, selling price will be equal to 6.5 para lang maiba. Okay? But since kapareho lang yan ng illustrative 2, 6.1446 pa din ang ating PVOA. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, initial measurement, once again, no? Initial measurement of leased liability will just be the same, and that's equal to 6.1446 times 750,000, or that is equal to 4608,450. Again, this is equal to 4608,450. Okay? Kamukha lang ng problem number 2. So, 4608,450 now. Final answer, requirement number 1. Okay? Now, hindi yan ang ating magiging right retain because sabi natin kanina sa ating discussion, right retain, no? Right? Sulat natin. Right retain is actually equal to the initial measurement of lease liability, which is 4608,450 minus, right, the additional financing, which is the difference between the selling price and the fair value, or that's equal to 500,000. Okay? So, magkano lang ang right retain natin? Right retain must only be equal, no, to 4108,450. Ibig sabihin ngayon, cost of row 1 natin will only be equal, no, to the carrying amount of 5 million pesos times the right retain of 4108,450 divided by the fair value of 6 million pesos. So, magkano yung cost of row 1? Cost of row 1, once again, is equal to 5 million times 4108,450. 5 million times 4108,450 divided by 6 million, or this is equal to 3,423,708. So, requirement number 2, 3,423,708 will be our final answer. Okay? Requirement 3, magkano daw ba yun ating total gain? Once again, total gain is actually equal to the fair value of 6 million pesos minus the carrying amount of 5 million pesos, or this is equal to 1 million pesos still. Hindi sa selling price, sa fair value po dapat. That's why requirement number 3, 1 million is our final answer. Requirement 4, magkano daw yung gain to be recognized natin? So, see to it, no, that gain to be recognized is actually equal, no, to the total gain, which is equal to 1 million pesos times the right transferred. Paano i-compute yung right transferred? That's equal to the fair value minus the right retained, no? Which is equal to 4,108,450. So, 6 million minus 4,108,450. The right transferred now is equal to 1,891,550 divided by the 6 million fair value pa din. So, magkano yung ating gain to be recognized? 1 million times 1,891,550 or this is equal, no, to 315,258. So, requirement number 4, 315,258 will be our final answer. Okay? Then last but not the least, no, is gain not to be recognized. So, magkano daw po ba yung gain not to be recognized natin? Well, if total gain is 1 million, no, and we will only recognize a total of 315,258, see to it that gain not to be recognized now will be equal to 684,742. So, requirement number 5, 684,742 will be our final answer. Okay? Now, punta tayo sa last problem. That is illustrative problem number 4. Actually, same problem lang ulit. But this time, no, the selling price will be equal to 5.5 million pesos. So, pinalitan ko po ulit yung selling price ng 5.5 million pesos. Sa illustrative problem number 2, selling price is equal to fair value at 6 million. Illustrative problem number 3. Anong meron sa illustrative problem number 3? Dito sa illustrative problem 3 naman, fair value is actually lower than the selling price kasi selling price is 6.5. Then dito sa illustrative problem number 4, ginawa kong 5.5 million pesos. So ibig sabihin, kung 6 million pa rin po yung fair value, asahan mo dito na what? Meron po tayong prepayment na i-deduct sa computation ng right retained mamaya. At magkano yung prepayment? The prepayment will be equal to 500,000. Okay? So here, initial measurement of lease liability, kamukha lang ng mga previous problem, no? Huwag na natin i-compute ulit. That is 4,608,450. Again, this is equal to 4,608,450. Okay? Requirement number 2, cost of right of use asset. So this time, no, compute muna po natin yung ating right retained. So right retained is equal to the 4,608,450 initial measurement of lease liability plus the prepayments of 500,000. So additional financing is deducted while prepayment is added. So right retained now will be equal to 5,108,450. Then our right transferred on the other hand, no, compute na rin natin, is equal to the fair value of 6 million pesos minus the right retained of 5,108,450 or this is equal to magkano? Our right transferred is actually equal to 891,550. Again, right transferred now is equal to 891,550. Okay? So, ngayon, compute natin yung cost of ROA. So, cost of ROA now will be equal to the carrying amount of 5 million pa din po times the right retain of 5,108,450 divided by the total fair value of 6 million pesos or magkano ito? 5 million times 5,108,450 divided by 6 million or this is equal to 4,257,042. So, final answer, requirement number 2 will be equal to 4,257,042. Okay? Requirement 3, total gain. Magkano total gain natin? Total gain will be equal to the difference between the fair value of 6 million pesos minus the minus the carrying amount of 5 million pesos or this will still be equal, no, to 1 million pesos. Okay? So, requirement 3, 1 million, final answer. Requirement 4, magkano daw yung gain to be recognized natin? Ulit-ulit na lang, guys. Gain to be recognized is equal to the total gain of 1 million times the right transferred of 891,550 divided by the fair value of 6 million pesos. So, gain to be recognized once again, no? is equal to 1 million times 891,550 divided by 6 million, or this is equal to 148,592. So requirement number 4, 148,592 will be the final answer. Then last but not the least is the gain not to be recognized. So magkano yung gain not to be recognized natin? That's equal to the total gain of 1 million minus the gain to be recognized of 148,592, or this is equal to around 851,408. So requirement number 5, 851,408 will be our final answer. Okay? So that is sales and leaseback transaction, and that's the end of this video. So thank you for watching, thank you for supporting our channel. See you sa part 5 ng Accounting for Leases. Bye bye guys, take care and God bless.